audience member comes to you with, for example, does that not mean that you should at least have thought about the definition of all the words in your?
No.
Because if someone asks a question like, I didn't understand the word flight.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very good example, which is often brought up. And again, it's brought up by devil's advocates, extreme devil's advocate, who says, I'm going to make him fall. And so they ask this question just to make you, go blush or go red or whatever. And they say, well, you said object is that which has shape. What do you mean by shape? That's the question they ask you. And I have very good answers for that. I think that, and I'm not going to define shape because the word shape does not need to be defined. We don't need to know what shape is, not in any scientific or super duper astrophysicist way. Let me tell you why. We have a competition for criteria. So one guy says, look, you ask him, well, what is shape? What is an object to you? And he says, well, an object is that which I can see. The other guy says, no, it's that which I can touch. The other guy says, no, it's a volume. The other guy says, no, it's mass. The other guy says, no, it's that which can move. So they have all these criteria, and I'm saying, no, an object is that which has shape. Now, do we all understand every one of those words? We don't need to. We in general, the definition of ordinary speech is sufficient. I don't need to know exactly what he meant by motion. I just need to know that motion is different than shape, and shape is different than volume, and volume is different than mass. And touch and see. As long as we have a distinction, we have a competition between these words, I'm saying, look, your definition based on see, touch, mass, volume, whatever, cannot compete against my definition of shape. And the guy says, so the debate is whether shape is a better criterion for the purposes of physics than motion or than volume or mass or whatever. Not to harp on, well, what did you mean by shape? Well, don't you know what shape is? And that's where I use the other example, and I'm saying, well, go to a kindergarten, and you'll find these 3 and 4-year-olds, these toddlers there, and show them a cube, and show them a ball, a rounded cube. One of his, you just take 2 of his toys. One is a ball shape, the other one's a cubic shape. They're both the same color. Everything is the same except one has a different shape than the other. And you say, what is the difference between these two? And he said, well, the shape. Now the kid didn't go to college.
One's in your left hand, one's in your right hand.
Yeah, but I mean, the kid didn't go to college, and he can say, well, yeah, the only thing I see different is the shape, and that's the word that we call shape. The one that a cube is different than a ball. We don't need to have a high-level definition of shape. We just need to use shape as a criterion to oppose what the mathematicians use as criterion, which is see, touch. See and touch require another object. So it's a redundant definition. It's a synonym in a sense that you need an object to define an object. It's circular. You need, the object that's seeing. It's also subjective.
Well, you're going fast through that, but let's go deep on that. Why can't you define an object as that which I can touch? Because that which is touchable.
Because that means you need another object to do the touching.
And what's the problem with that?
Well, because you're trying to define the word object, and you're saying, well, let me run a test for you. I'm going to bring an object to touch your object, and that's what I'm going to call an object, the one that I can touch. So that's essentially what you're saying. So you're introducing another object in there tacitly, implicitly, just to do the touching, the seeing.
Well,
that's one issue. But the other issue is that it's subjective, because now, especially in the case of seeing, you require, well, what did you see? I didn't see the object. Oh, you didn't see the object, so it's not an object. I didn't see the moon. I'm blind, I'm a blind man. I can't see the moon, so it's not an object. So it's subjective. Oh, I haven't landed on the moon, so I haven't touched the moon, so it's not an object until I land on it. That kind of thing.
Are you essentially saying it makes it hard to discern whether things are objects or not?
It compels you to run a test. And the question is, can you run a test with the object on the other side of the universe? Can you see it? Can you land on it? If you can't, then it's not an object. The star that's on the other side of the universe, the word star is not an object.
Well, but isn't it a conceptual issue?
It is, but we're trying to get a definition for the purposes of physics.
I don't have to touch the moon to know it is touchable.
How do you know it's touchable if you haven't
assume.
touched the moon?
You assume.
Well, but again, it requires first an object, second it's subject, and the third it requires an experiment.
Well, it doesn't require
So it means
an
that
experiment.
if there's
it
only
requires an assumption.
But look, if there's a single object in the whole universe, there's no other object, right? You have a cube there. Is that cube an object according to your definition?
No.
It's a cube because it's an object because it has shape. Whereas you say, well, I need another object to touch it to find out if it's an object.
Well,
That's where we have a problem.
With the touchable definition, it would be impossible to have one object in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly how we have to treat the word object, as if the table were the only object in the universe. So you point to the table and say, I'm not the second object, but I'm God. I'm a spirit, and I'd point to the table and say table. And the only thing the ET, the guy who's trying to understand my language, sees or visualizes or has as an object there is the table. That's the way we should treat it when we introduce an object in physics.